Conan O'Brien said, "Be kind and do good work." This is the Producers Lounge podcast. I'm your host, Richard Tucci, and on this week's episode, we have part 2 of my visit to Dodge College of Film at Chapman University, where I spoke to a class of film student producers studying under Scott Arundale. Let's get right into it. Here's my class with Scott Arundale at one of my former film schools, Chapman University.
We're making some headway.
Awesome.
Hello. I thought it would be useful to talk to some people. So for today and next week, we're going to have a guest speaker, and then I've got one more week with you. We're going to talk about music clearance. You know, it makes sense to kind of gear information towards you, the producer, whether you work in development, whether you work in post. I think you need to know this stuff. And as I mentioned before, it's important to try and wrap your arms around it in regards to the big picture, whether or not you ever are directly responsible for post or not, because we all are essentially once the film's in the can or on the cart, responsible for making sure we bring it home. And then it goes beyond that, even including, as I mentioned before, all of the deliverables, including foreign, including the soundtrack, including the closed captioning, and ultimately having to get past standards in practice, to get past or get into syndication. And now, there's a new concept that you may be familiar with, which is that idea of TV everywhere. HBO has something called HBOGo.com. I know that the cable companies and the satellite delivery companies are very keenly aware that if they want to keep their audience base, because they're charging several $100s a month for, these HD cable packages, you're not just going to watch it at home. You're going to watch it on your handheld device. You're going to go on vacation and want to watch it everywhere. You're going to watch it on the airlines even, right? So there's so many more different avenues in terms of deliverables and how we consume this stuff than ever before. And so I thought Richard Tucci might be able to enlighten us not only what it's like when you get out of school, because he went to school here at Chapman and at SC as a producer, but also what you might encounter on the outside, what are some of the things to be thinking about, and ultimately what is the next step? Like, where are we going with all of this? Because we're in a state of upheaval in a way. Anyway, I want to say welcome, Richard Tucci, and I'll hand it up to you.
Thank you. So I'll start off by giving you guys kind of an idea of where I'm from. I'm originally from Connecticut. Knew right off the bat that I wanted to go into film in some capacity, and I wound up taking a summer class at USC called the Summer Production Workshop. It was 5 intense weeks, and during the course of that period, I fell in love with producing. The budgeting, the logistics. From a meta level, I saw producing as the person who is ultimately responsible for the film. You can have a great script, great director, great talent, but unless you have a producer to bring them all together, you wind up making Howard the Duck. So after that, I applied to a ton of film schools. I wound up getting into Chapman back when they were still in what I understand is the Student Athletic Union building.
It's still the Cecil B. DeMille building, but yeah, they have a lot of sports.
Gotcha.
Sports medicine.
They have a lot of sports in there, and we were, 600 students crammed into that little building, and we had to accomplish a lot. But one of the things I learned the most from at Chapman was the ability to really cut my teeth on some advanced projects. One of the strengths I got out of film school was I was a very ambitious kid, so I would always go for the larger projects. At this time, the film school was only 10 years old, so I was a freshman, and I was the first freshman producer on a senior thesis film that succeeded. All the other freshman producers at that point had nervous breakdowns or quit the project or flaked out. But the fact that I succeeded helped my reputation a great deal amongst other Chapman film students. And it wound up carrying over until after graduation, where people still remembered me as, oh yeah, you're that kid that did all that. And then also, my sophomore year at Chapman, I tried to produce a feature-length documentary called John of Newport, which, God willing, no one will ever see. But because it was such a large project, I was able to cut my teeth and learn a lot about the bigger sides of vignettes and dealing with bad weather and dealing with a project over a long period of time. Eventually, I transferred to USC for my junior and senior year, and learned a lot there. I wound up producing a documentary there called Walk in the Light about an all-gay black church in South Central, which wound up getting picked up by BET Jazz, got a little runtime there, so that was fun. And then after I graduated, my first job was actually for a woman named Heidi Jo Markel. She was a producer with a deal at Millennium New Image, and she had a lot of experience there as far as putting together projects, smaller independent projects.
That's Avi Lerner's company, right?
That is Avi Lerner's company,
okay.
yes.
So they're famous for, quote, B movies and things that they take to Cannes. And
he's definitely the kind of Roger Corman of our era.
And he just did a big budget movie with who did I see? With who?
There's the wedding. The wedding is coming out next year. That Harry Oslin's producing.
Okay.
He said that's at Cannes.
Yeah. Okay. So he's definitely looking up. Yeah.
Okay. So I worked there for about a month or two, and then I got a job offer from Penny Marshall. So I was her assistant for about a year and a half, and that was a really interesting experience because I was working with her as her assistant, and I wasn't just doing personal stuff. I was actually hiring interns, dealing with writers, directors, people who had, been nominated for Oscars. And that experience is very interesting because you see kind of the surreal mixed with the mundane and how Hollywood is just this composite of the two thrown together. As far as these high-minded, creative, artistic ideas, and then you have to realize how you're going to accomplish them by getting Cameron Diaz or Angelina Jolie attached to the picture. And then all the notes that go back and forth between studios and the artistic types and about how things get changed and seeing that in a real-world perspective. Let's see. And then after that, I left and started doing a bunch of freelance work. I had done production coordinator. I had worked my way into reality TV also and worked my way up to associate producer and story producer on several projects. So that's me in a nutshell. And I want to hear about you guys. Tell me what's up. What are you here for in film school for? Producing? All of you?
Yes.
Do you still get the crap where directing and writing students come up to you and say, producing isn't a real art form?
Yeah.
Yeah?
No.
No?
They don't say that
I
directly.
definitely feel like producers at this particular school are just completely underestimated, underappreciated.
I agree.
I don't think anyone knows what we do.
Yeah.
They think we're the coffee makers.
Mm-hmm.
Creatively involved, like we're not as creatively.
But it depends what director you hook up with, because sometimes it'll be someone who really doesn't want to get creative with it.
You hit on something that's very, very key, is that it is all about partnerships and hooking up with the right director and the right talent. And also, sorry to say this, it's not just at this film school. It's all film schools, unfortunately, because a lot of people have high-minded ideas about what a film is and what it takes to make a film, and they don't understand the collaborative nature of it. They don't understand that producing is an art form, and it is maybe a less tangible art form because it is about interpersonal relationships, but it is an art form nonetheless. You're going to find when you get out of film school, and this started for me about 6 months after I graduated, and then all of my friends who were the directors and the writers and who said, producing isn't important, in that 6-month interval, they found that they had to put together business plans for their independent films. So then 6 months later, they started coming back begging for me to do a budget or a schedule for them and try to put together a market analysis plan for them. So that's one of the ways that you have, I don't want to say power in the situation, but certainly leverage. And don't just take any opportunity that comes. Find the right opportunities. Find the right people. It really is about character and who you deal with in this industry. So make sure that you deal with people who are, who you trust, who both trust in their judgment and their creative sensibilities as well as their word. So let's see. So that's where we're all at. We're basically all in the same boat as far as we're producers, and we have a gift, we have a talent, and we have leverage in this situation. And then when it comes to the world of post-production, we find there is still a lot of coordinating there because another thing that film schools are very good at is they teach you about everything within a certain spectrum. But a lot of times post-production isn't counted in that spectrum. You hear the saying a lot, we'll fix it in post. Well, if you don't understand the post process and what your elements are and what you can do within a certain budget, then you're not going to be able to fix it. On top of that, once you complete it and deliver all your elements, if you're lacking stuff, that's going to affect your marketability, that's going to affect how much the movie can recoup, and that's going to affect how much you get in your own residuals package, if you've negotiated that into your contract. So yeah, I'm doing all the talking. Let me hear from you guys. What are your questions about this? Yes?
Oh.
I was asking, what was your approach leading up to graduation in terms of what you wanted to do after? Did you think about that ahead of time after school?
That was something I thought a lot about in leading up to graduation because I was plagued by a lot of stories of people graduating film school and then they go back to their hometowns in Minnesota or wherever and they just drop off the map. So you find a lot of times in order to prepare for that, people will recommend you take internships. People will recommend you do weekend jobs or be willing to work for free. In my own experience, internships didn't really pan out for me. A lot of people are willing to hire you when you're willing to work for free. Make sure that you're working for someone who is willing to and can hire you when you actually need a salary. And that can part is very tough because you have to evaluate the company. You have to look at their history. If you're willing to work for free on a production, I would say don't sell yourself short. I mean, on a student production, this is a community where you're helping your fellow colleagues and your students. But if you're going up to Hollywood on a weekend in order to, you're spending gas and a lot of resources and time to go up there, you want to make sure that they're a person of value and a company of value. And you want to make sure that the next time they need somebody, they're not just going to ask you to work for free again. So if you go up to LA and you're looking for jobs, make sure that you're getting paid and getting paid a decent rate by a good company. And that's going to be what pays off the most because these people, if you do a good job for them, then they're going to keep bringing you back for other shows. I actually did a 2-week job during the summer for Triage Entertainment. And they've done a lot of shows as far as Next Iron Chef. They've done World's Scariest Places. And I did that 2-week gig for them summer of '05. And they've kept bringing me back for their specials. Next question. Yes?
So, coming out of school and stuff like that, let's say, people always discuss they want to go a certain career path.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, I want to go into on-set production, I want to go into development, I want to go into blah, 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 blah. If you're offered a job in something that is not exactly what you want to go into, do you believe that's smart to just take it? To be like, you know what, at least I can maybe work my way into something else. Does that make any sense? So I've seen it a billion times where people they say they don't want to work in development, but they get a great job in development, and they kind of hold there, they stick there for so long because there's really no way.
I'd like to address that, and I want to hear what Richard has to say. The focus of my being here is about post-production, and there are so many opportunities to make your way up through post to the point that you are a producer, a creative producer on a show, and I'm talking primarily about television, but it can also be related to features, where, you may not think, oh, that's not my bag, like I don't really care about editing or post, but those people that do care enough to learn it or to make their way are able to work their way all the way up, march their way all the way up the ladder, in fairly short order. So that I mean, you're right. I don't know what the exact way to do it is. Nobody really knows because most of the producers that I've met started out doing janitorial work for the studios, literally, and so. I'm not sure. I'd love to hear what Richard has to say about
Well, first, where are you meeting these producers?
Well, I'm working for them,
You know what? Again, it comes back to, to be honest, I know people who have been nominated for Academy Awards in cinematography and editing, and they came out to LA because they wanted to be an actor. The fact that you choose, you take a job that is not your main career path, you may find that you love it, You may find that you hate it, but it's still a path. You don't want to dismiss it simply because it doesn't fit into a preconceived notion of who you are. Life changes. People change. You may be underestimating something, and it may lead to a path that you really do enjoy and could find yourself in for 30 years. My preconceived notion was I was going to go work for a small production company, Penny Marshall in this case, and after a year, she was going to promote me to a creative executive, and then I would go out and wheel and deal, and eventually, with those kind of credentials, I would get a feature off and be able to schmooze my way into a 3-picture studio deal by the age of 25. Now that I'm 28, about to turn 29, I now understand how incredibly insane that is. It's, you could find yourself in a very different position, and it's not so much about, where your bag is or what your, what field you're in, but about the people that you surround yourself with, the company that you're in, and that could make a huge amount of difference in your life. So, does that make sense?
Perfect sense.
Okay.
It's tough. It's just a tough notion to get through your head because, like we all, I don't know about anyone else, but it's kind of like we have opportunities that are set on the table by certain ones. You're working at a company or you're, somebody offers you to work on this or that and that, and then you kind of think to yourself, which one do I want to take? Which one is, it's a good position to be in, but at the same time, you're trying to think to yourself, do I want to go into post? Or do I want to go into production? It's tough to be like, yes, I can make this much money for this long in this track, but I don't want to be on this track. Even Barbara Doyle used to tell us, she said that she worked in development and she didn't like it that much. She was just, and then she made her way into production. So it's just that kind of confusing nature that I'm trying to get used to.
It is a confusing nature, and it's a confusing industry because when you get out there, you realize it's not the same as, like moving up in your career is not the same as moving up in one department of one company over a course of time. It's not guaranteed. But like basically, if you're going up in a freelance position, and that's what the majority of film is. There's a lot of freelance positions out there, unless you go into like corporate accounting for a major studio. But if you go out in a freelance position, you're definitely starting out as a PA, and then you're just a general PA, and then eventually you find a department head that you match up with, and wherever that, in this case of post-production, then you move up and become assigned to them, and then you become a post-PA. And if they like you, they keep bringing you back as part of their crew. And then moving up further, you eventually become a assistant post-coordinator, eventually move up to another post-coordinator. And most of these move-ups are in a position where you're being brought back again and again for like from season 2 to season 3 of a show, or if they're bringing you back for multiple features in a row. The whole key there is to be kind and do good work. So just keep doing that, and of course there are a lot of other side bits about being political, knowing when's the right time to ask, and all those other things. But those are case by case in the moment decisions that you have to make as individuals. I can't instruct you on that, and nobody can. But moving up that ladder means just keep being good enough that you keep getting brought back for the work over and over again. There's no other secret than that. Actually, I'm sorry, I cut you off earlier. What was your question?
Oh, no, it kind of goes with there is like, how do you avoid getting stuck in post? Like, I was talking to, in my internship, they're like,
How could you be stuck in post? I don't understand that.
No, like, you could be a post coordinator or whatever, and just never move up from there. And because you don't really recognize it until after the fact that you're just being redundant. And you're not going up, you're just going stagnant.
That's a very good thing to ask, is that it's a question of time. If you're in that position where you're stuck in something and you're not moving up and you want to get above a certain glass ceiling, then it could be several factors. It could be the people that you're working with and they're not willing to promote you. It could also be the circumstances as far as budget. They can't afford to pay you extra. If that is the situation, then that comes down to getting out there and networking. And by the way, I want to say one other thing. A lot of the things you see, once you graduate, you're going to see a lot of things promoted as networking events. Most of those are bullshit because they're organized at bars, and they have a certain bar quota they have to meet. So the only people there are just the general public, or what I like to refer to as Hollywood crazies. People who have a script and they don't really know what they're doing. They just follow the secret, and hopefully magic will one day hit them. But what you want to look for as far as networking events is stuff organized by studios, stuff organized by unions, stuff organized by Chapman, because there's an array of quality people there, rather than just throwing out an advertisement on Yahoo.
What about the PGA?
The PGA is a good resource, and networking, it's not always networking at bars and parties and clubs. Sometimes it's as simple as, inviting old friends out for lunch, and not making the ask that you're looking for work or looking for advancement until the end of the lunch, because you don't want to come off as, I'm looking for work and that's the only reason we're meeting. But it is that kind of networking and being a face in the forefront of their mind.
So you have to have an entrepreneurial streak no matter what.
Yeah. Earlier when I said this is a freelance business, that's absolutely true, because you have to think of yourself as a company that you're promoting. You have to constantly be promoting yourself through one way or another, whether it's through personal interaction or through Facebook and Twitter and all that, and just finding ways to get your name out there and be present for people. And at first you're promoting yourself as a company, and then eventually, if you're successful enough, you're promoting an actual company where you are a department head, such as the head of a post house or the head of a sound department, and you are promoting yourself and your equipment and all the assets you can come to the table with. So, yeah.
You had mentioned inviting old friends out to lunch.
Mm-hmm.
How, with someone who you haven't spoken with since high school and they are now a big agent at CAA, how would you do that?
Persistence is one thing. If you're talking about a step-by-step process, you start off slowly. You would, contact them on LinkedIn or Facebook, something more casual. And if they don't follow up with you, like after a month, say, goes by, 2 weeks to a month, then you would send a direct email to their office. All the emails at CAA or ICM, they have a very basic template. It's, first name, _ last name, @ agency name. Very simple. And then you just send them a direct email. You'll probably get their assistant. Be like, hey, I want to catch up. I want to do lunch. I'm free. I'm flexible. What works for you? And of course, they're going to give you the general standoffish answer. Look, just be aware. I can't read scripts. I can't accept solicitations. And that's fine for them to give you that answer, because you're not building a relationship just to send off a one-time script and that's it. You want to create an ongoing relationship with them. And part of that is creating a good, comfortable environment with them so that they trust you, they see you as a person of value, and then when you do have that project that may be 2 months down the line or a year down the line, you can contact them. And also over the course of this time, you want to remember anniversaries, you want to remember birthdays. You've got to stay on top of that because it's part of networking. And on the post-production side, it's the same thing. If you want to remain as part of someone's crew, if they're a post producer and you want to keep coming back as a post coordinator, you need to remember to say hey to them, what you up to, etc.
Yeah, I think the worst thing you can do is have a great working relationship with someone and you think you really hit it off, and then just don't contact them for 2 or 3 years after that.
Mm-hmm.
Then that trail goes cold and you have to sort of rekindle it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I wanted to just talk briefly about the difference in culture between SC and Chapman, and what's different, what's the same.
Keep in mind that I went to school 10 years ago, so literally the Chapman that existed then is no longer in existence because you're all here in this building, and the USC that existed then is no longer in existence either because they tore down the Lucas building and created this big new shiny building. But the culture between the two has changed a lot.
The new school over there is huge. Feels like an insurance building when you walk in. It's giant.
Yeah, and like one of the things that USC did really well was it had the student production office, which I see you guys have a production management office here now, and that is a great asset, both because it has a ton of binders and resources in it, and on top of that, it's a place where you can talk with your fellow film students and brainstorm. that's really a key component there, is the community that you get in film school.
He's talking about the bullpen downstairs.
The bullpen, yeah. And once you get out of film school, you're never going to have that again. You're never going to have a time or a place where you meet other filmmakers just to sit and talk, or trade ideas or spitball, whatever it is. And that's something that's really an asset here now, and you should use it to its fullest extent. USC also had a bigger campus, which meant, you had a bigger student body to deal with. You had more people to interact with. And the size of the film school here, as far as number of students, has doubled since I went here. So that's a great asset you guys have now, as far as pulling for crew and then pulling for inspiration as well.
What about the mindset of the film graduates that they're putting out there? I mean, isn't there a sense of entitlement that, maybe they're not willing to start as PAs? Or?
I wouldn't call it entitlement. I would call it false sense of security.
Yeah.
Because no matter what film school you went to, when you graduate, you're going to have to start out the same as anybody, including the guy coming, fresh off the bus from Columbus, Ohio. So.
And why is that? Like, why is there seemingly no benefit to film school in a way, like for starting out?
Well, there is a benefit from film school, but the benefit isn't in just having a piece of paper. The benefit is in the experience, so that when you do get that job, you're going to be able to go in, be gung-ho, and while a guy from Columbus, Ohio is still trying to figure out the difference between a sandbag and a C-47, then you can go in and say, I know this, this, and this, and you can attack a problem firsthand. Film school is not about the piece of paper. It's about the experience. It's about doing everything you can here.
And starting your network early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And starting your networking early.
Yeah.
But you have 2 years here. It's a good gestation period to learn. How many of you came to get your film grad degree after getting a bachelor's film degree? Right. 1, 2, no? Okay. Just checking. So, out of curiosity, did you guys get your bachelor's film degrees at a school outside of California? Or?
Yes.
Yeah. So why did you come to Chapman specifically?
Because I'm from Florida. Our big film school is in Tallahassee, so I thought I could make better connections.
Is that Florida State or Full Sail?
Florida State.
Okay.
Full Sail's in Georgia, I think.
Full Sail's actually in where Disneyland is. That's their headquarters.
Yeah, that one's in LA.
Disney
There's
World.
another one that's really big that's in Georgia. So I thought I could make faster connections here. The only reason my parents were going to let me move out here is if I went to school and stuff. I decided to go to school. Yeah.
Well, you're absolutely right. You're going to make more connections here, and you're going to make them from both Chapman and your proximity to LA. So.
And so, how many of you are actually currently living in Los Angeles? And how many plan on relocating to there? Okay.
And how many of you plan on leaving California after you graduate?
Might for you.
Do it. Raise your hand.
Okay.
I'm thinking about New York, actually.
New York?
Yeah.
New York's
Chicago.
good. Chicago?
It's a dream.
Chicago has a great theater community, actually. I've heard good things about it. Okay. Yeah. Huh?
Harpo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
Excellent.
No, those are all good opportunities. And, one thing I discovered after I graduated film school is that, I'm sorry this isn't really on the topic of post-production, but...
It's all right, I have a few questions.
Okay. But, it's also a survival game, staying in this industry. I found the day after I graduated, half the people I knew just disappeared. They went back to Oklahoma or Nebraska or wherever, and they just started small film production companies, video production companies in their hometown, or they quit film entirely. They said that was fun and went over to work for their dad's insurance company. And then, another year after that, another half the people disappeared. Another year after that, another half the people disappeared. It's a long, and I bring this up because I want to illustrate it's a long-term game. You may be working for 5 or 6 years in your career in film before you see some really significant gains. You'll be moving up the ladder slowly but surely, but then after that 5 or 6 year mark, you'll really start to stand out because you've stayed in the game. I'm sorry, I know I just gave you a migraine from that.
Things that we're really thinking about, and I'm trying to make my own calculations in terms of how am I going to afford, working at a low entry level position and pay my student loans and pay my car Bill and whatever else.
We're all out in like 6 months.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
This
Okay.
is what we're
Yeah.
talking and thinking about.
It's not more like, it's not like the fear that nothing's gonna happen.
Mhm.
You know, it's that concept, but it's just more, it's more that like,
We just need to make sure it happens.
How
Like,
quickly
yeah,
can it
yeah,
happen?
How quickly can it? It's about. It's a.
In addition, I think also for, at least for most of us,
Mhm.
some of us have undergraduate degrees in, film or in theater or
Mhm.
whatever. And a lot of us took a year or two off and tried to work and then decided to come back to film school.
Mhm.
So we're already in that 5-year waiting period, and it's like,
But the question is, are you in that? Are you actively working in the entertainment industry, or are you in school? Because school is already taking up 20 hours of your
Most of us
time.
are both.
both.
Both. Okay.
We all have
Both.
internships.
I'm just going to take a poll. Raise your hands if you're confident in your abilities after you graduate and your abilities to find a job. All right, that's good.
I'm a different situation because I'm Canadian and I didn't
Oh.
realize that everything was going to be freelance and that's not going to get me a work visa.
Mhm.
So,
Now, I didn't say everything.
Yeah.
I said a large number of things.
no,
Now-
I've just been hearing that not just from you, from lots of people. So.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's a ton of stuff in Canada.
You know what you might-
Yeah,
Yeah.
I start there.
You know what you
Yeah.
might consider doing? And this
Like
is
my
a
entire
little bit of a
company's based
side.
there.
There are a lot of directors and there are a lot of talent
Mhm.
that end up working in places like Toronto and Vancouver. And so you should consider just forming a close to the vest production company and teaming up with, let's say, an American director,
Uh-huh.
okay, and see what you can get going between here and Vancouver or here in Toronto. Where are you from?
I'm from Saskatchewan, so
Okay.
like I don't have any
I don't
family.
even know where that is. That's,
Yeah, my friend Sean Thomas is from Saskatchewan. Actually, he's an actor out here. He's yeah.
so I think there's some ways to leverage that, considering how much production is taking place in Canada right now.
Mhm.
So don't discount that.
And also, I'd point out that you have an advantage. Have any of you been to Cannes or Berlin or any of the international film markets yet? Go to Cannes. I kind of made a mistake when I was in film school in that I did not take the opportunities to go to Cannes, whether it was as a student or on my parents' dime. I felt compelled by pride, if you will, to go on my own dime. And I just went for the first time this year. And there's a ton of incentives, from private film funds to state film funds to tax incentives for international filmmakers. And as a Canadian, you have an advantage that a lot of American filmmakers don't have. Now, you guys are all here, but she's the one who can team up with a German co-producer and get $3 million.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts on that? Like everything's filming. It's hard to get production work
Mhm.
now. Everything's filming, and God knows where. So like,
Television.
do you?
There's still a ton of television shooting in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Now, there's always the concern that you're going to get pigeonholed into like being a TV person rather than a film person, depending where you are or what you're doing. That doesn't mean you are actually going to be stuck there for the next 30 years. That just means you have to work a little bit harder to cross over. Maybe you have to do an independent film for little to no money, but those opportunities are going to be there. And if you're in a production management position and you want to look for things out there that are shooting in LA, look at television. And corporate stuff too. I mean, commercials have a much shorter run. They're only like a couple weeks or something. But they're available, and there's a ton of commercial production companies in LA still. They didn't all go over to India and China.
Yeah, I mean, even the companies that are shooting in Louisiana, they
Mhm.
usually have their headquarters here.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you look at the tide or the success of each of the states with these tax credits, I mean, Michigan was super hot for the last couple of years, and I think Chicago's coming up. So there's opportunities regionally, but for the most part, they're going to originate here,
Mm-hmm.
I would think. Unless you decide, I'm going to become the expert in a small pond and, work with the film commission or become the film commission with, wherever you decide you
Mhm.
want to live.
Be open to possibilities.
This is like you talk to people who are physical production people, and they're like, you don't have to work on set to start in physical production, but I did because, and I'm like, then how can you tell me you don't have to? Like you did.
Because they might know people who didn't go that route, successful people. So,
Well,
and also if you're interested in being like a physical production executive, you don't necessarily have to go that route. You could start off as an assistant on a desk at a production company, and then move your way up to junior executive, senior executive, and so on in the physical production department. And that's, I mean, I don't want to sell it too much, but if that's something you feel compelled to do, you get a steady paycheck every week because you're working for one company. You get benefits like dental and medical and 401k, and those are things that you actually attach significant value to when you're in your late 20s and 30s and you're starting to build a family.
Yeah, you have to decide, I think, what comfort level you're ready to accept, whether you want to work your way up the corporate food chain versus working freelance. And they both have their pros and cons. I mean, working up the corporate food chain, I'll give you an example. Julia Pister started at Viacom 15 years ago in New York City. And, she was probably an assistant on a desk for 4 or 5 years. And eventually she became a VP, and then she became a senior VP. And at some point she moved to Los Angeles and was executive producer on Good Burger and that pig movie, Charlotte's Web. No, but the point is that she paid her dues. It took her 15 years, and she's now got a nice office. Okay, to me, that's an extremely long haul, but results in the pot of gold. Versus
now in her 40s.
She's my age. I went to high school with her. So the alternate way is to work freelance and to take chances in a way that you don't have the job security, but you do have your own network. And, at some point, if you're a producer, independent, you're going to have to create your own health and welfare package, meaning you take out your own health insurance or what have you. But there are certain rewards and benefits to that, in that you're not necessarily beholden to one company. You don't have to show up every day at 9 o'clock in the tower and in a suit. It just depends on where you see yourself, at any given point. Richard's right in saying it's a 5-year plan. We're talking about a natural progression from PA to assistant to coordinator to associate to co to producer. That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is you have tapped into some doctors and lawyers, and you're going to raise a small amount of money, and you're going to go out there and take a script or an idea, and you're going to turn it into an indie feature.
And also, one other thing is, I did this little thing of comparing the two film schools. But I think one of the things that was bad between both Chapman and USC, and I think a lot of film schools, is they still taught like the 70s version of independent filmmaking, which is you tap into lawyers and doctors and family friends, whereas in today's economy, because of what we're going through, there are other ways to find financing. There are a lot of completion funds out there for post-production. There are funds out there for gap financing. There's international co-productions, which, if you have foreign citizenship, is an option. It's a lot more creative because you're building elements from all over the world rather than the standard friends, family, and fools. Now, again, friends, families, and fools are still an option. We made a movie called Virus X. That was $100,000 funded by one of the guys who actually wanted to make a feature film and also act in it. And we wound up making it thinking it wasn't really going to go anywhere, and then it wound up getting picked up by Lionsgate and distributed all around the world. Strange things can happen. You never know what can happen, but you have to be aware of these options and be aware of these elements. Actually, after film school, a bunch of my friends moved to China and set up production companies there, and they're actually doing quite well. Chinese money is, China's got a lot of money at the moment. Let's just leave it at that.
Can we talk about Virus X, since that was fairly recent? That's a feature, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you found, essentially what you described that as is a vanity project, meaning somebody's got $100,000 and they want to star in it?
Correct.
Okay, and so the expectations of that...
Well, no, actually, the individual co-starred in it.
Okay.
He didn't star in it,
right.
But yeah.
And so they knew that you were competent in production, and they hired you as a line producer.
The reason I got brought in is because Ryan Stevens-Harris, the guy is literally brilliant, and he came into film school. We wound up teaming up on what would be the equivalent of a junior thesis project, and we
like a cycle film.
Yeah, a cycle film. Yeah, and we just went to town, and he was cinematographer on mine, and then I was cinematographer on his, and his talent was obvious. A lot of things you have to remember is that the director is king in Hollywood. one of the things that I was asked on this is, what camera is used most, Alexa or the Red or film? And again, the director follows the DP. The DP follows the camera that they like the most. And in our situation, the director followed the line producer that he liked the most, which I was lucky that it happened to be me.
But I want to talk about the nuts and bolts now.
Okay.
And I'm not going to really get too deep into the pre-production, but when you were setting up shop for this,
Mm-hmm.
okay, every time you make an indie feature, you kind of have to reinvent the wheel, right? You
Yeah.
You got to figure out offices, you got to figure out who your crew is going to be, and you're going to figure out, do I have enough time and money to finish this thing?
Mm-hmm.
So, how did you go about setting up your post-production and finish this movie? Because clearly you have to finish it in order to get paid.
On an independent film like these, actually both films I did, 13 Months of Sunshine and, Virus X, both of them were micro-budget. So we didn't have production offices. The production office was my apartment, and the coordinators and ADs would come over and meet me there. As far as setting up post, we spent a lot of time interviewing applicants for editors and assistant editors who were passionate about the material and who were hungry. We found a bunch of great editors and sound designers who, they were doing a lot of corporate work, but they had a ton of experience. So they were interested in coming on to us because they wanted to add a feature to their resume and reel. That's really all it boiled down to.
Sure.
If I were to say anything, look for people who have a ton of experience in the fields they don't want to be in.
So what do you look for in new hires?
People who are passionate, people who show a great skill in what they have done in the past, even if it's not specifically what we're looking for, and people who are hungry.
Yeah.
And also people who are open to suggestions, because sometimes you get these people, and you just got to feel out their attitude, and you can kind of feel that they know everything and they should be on this project, and they feel a sense of entitlement because of their stature in the industry to this point. And they're taking a huge pay cut to work on this. And you can just see kind of in the back of their head, they're looking for the opportunity to call you a young punk. But when you find someone who's cool and laid back and has a good reel under their belt already, then you just know it's a perfect fit. So, and you could see anywhere from 3 people to 24 people. It's just a question of finding the right one.
So at some point you had to take this finished film
Mm-hmm.
and show it to distributors.
Yeah. Virus X, we did a festival run through several niche independent horror festivals. And we wound up getting a lot of great quotes out of that, blurbs to put on the DVD cover.
So from a marketing point of view,
Yeah.
the festival circuit is a tremendous boost if you can get in. So at that point, you didn't have necessarily a master. Had you mastered it at that point for final delivery?
We had mastered it to that point.
Okay, so what did you have? Like
We had I think we had an HDSR
Uh-huh.
with stereo LT-RT and stereo M&E. Who doesn't know what those terms mean? Stereo LT-RT is just an abbreviation for stereo mix comp with everything, dialogue, music effects, etc. And then stereo M&E was provided, it's just music and effects, so that when the film goes internationally, they can dub in additional languages.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, our deliverables were we had to deliver a lot of photos.
So marketing elements are critical.
Oh, definitely critical. I was the one who shot this. We shot a quick behind-the-scenes thing one day on set. It was just an interview of the executive producer and some interstitial B-roll shots, and that wound up being our bonus features.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you'd be surprised where this stuff winds up coming from. Yes.
Stereo M&E, that is something that the editor would do in Pro Tools or something?
Specifically, yeah.
I have budgets that I want to distribute to you to talk about this and break it out. But basically, there's a stereo, which he's saying is LT-RT, which is left and right, okay? And that's your typical, most homes or on your computer you're listening to.
Mm-hmm.
There may also be a 5-1 mix, so there's other things. But what happens is, to get to this stereo, you have different what are called stems. And I'm going to shorthand it. I'm going to go D, M, and E, okay? These are called stems because they are separate elements that are created during the mix
Mhm.
for dialogue, music, and effects. Now, why would you keep them separate? Well, if for any reason you need to go back and re-edit, you've still got these stems that you can manipulate. Once you've gone to this stereo track, it's very difficult to break it back out. So for Germany, therefore, we want to put, or the rest of the foreign territories, we're going to take out the dialogue and just have the music and effects. And it's in shorthand now.
That's true, and it's important to keep the music tracks separate as well, because you could have different music clearances for different songs. It's possible you got a song from Van Halen, but it's only licensed for Uruguay. You never know what kind of stuff will come up.
We had a situation on Punchline where Tom Hanks is whistling Singing in the Rain. And as we all know, it's owned by Ted Turner. And the quote for using just the whistling track, because I think he did a little bit of lyric too, he sang it. I think the quote was $300,000. And so, to spite Ted Turner, in LA, we kept it in. The rest of the country, we took it out. So there are different versions. Yeah, I've got I recut a movie about bodybuilding and the use of performance-enhancing drugs, and so all the roid rage included a lot of swearing. Mm-hmm. And I had 2 full pages, which I will show you, of all the lines that had to be snipped out or replaced. So if you are doing anything that is considered risque or out there, you should, as you're shooting it, record the PG version right there, and then if you can. It'll save you time and money later on. What was it called? It's called No Pain, No Gain. I will show you that list. It's ridiculous. But anyway.
They do that on HBO shows. They do that on independent films. If you think your film can get wide release on TV, then you definitely want to record alternate versions of takes. But that's also in the production phase. If you're in the post-production phase and you don't have any control over that for whatever political reasons, then you do want to see if you can call in the actors for just an ADR session. It's not a lot, it's just one day. You don't even necessarily need an ADR booth. Sometimes all you need is just a room with mattresses and a microphone, and just, tell them to go down the line of "you son of a gun" and so on. I was also involved on the sound recording for a couple of animated pieces, and we would do alternate takes of just any old lines that we think might be involved in future rewrites. Simple stuff. Yes, no, watch out, whistling, all kinds of stuff.
But here's the deal. The director in their mind is going to say, this is a hard R movie. I don't care what anybody says. Well, you're the person that has to speak up and say, yeah, I know it's a hard R, but we've got to, for protection, record these additional lines. No one else is going to think of it. It's never going to occur to them. It's up to the producer to be forward-thinking and protect yourself by recording those lines in advance.
And let me say why, too. The director is responsible for the artistic integrity of the film. So if it's, plays the festival circuit and gets a ton of awards, that's great for them. But you as the producer are responsible for the financial recoupment of the film. Your future career is dependent upon your films making money. I believe you had a question, and then you. No? Oh, all right. Straight to you.
Yeah, so I had a question about alternate ADRs. So one of my favorite films, Equinox. They use ADR, but it's obviously not the original actors. It's schlocky, low budget. So what is the legal ramifications? When can we bring in other actors to dub over?
You can revoice anybody you want, unless they have it in their contract that they're not allowed to.
Yeah.
But most of the time you won't have that. Because even on this one, we're going to do ADR. We have one actor who's touch and go, and so I'm willing to put in somebody else.
Yeah, and Virus X, we had to do not even ADR for cursing, because there's no cursing in it. We just had to do ADR because we had shitty sound. But, around the time we were recording ADR, he was actually in China on another movie. So we had to, make a decision. Do we bring in another actor, or do we wait a month or two? And the director, Ryan, said, I want to wait. And we were able to convince the executive producer to, get the ADR equipment for another day, 2 months down the road, and that was that. So
there are a lot of creative solutions as far as picking up ADR lines. For example, as long as you can get, say, an actor, an actress into a studio in, say, New York, and it doesn't have to be a studio, but ideally it's a ADR facility where they've got playback, and the producers are in New York, they can supervise it over the telephone. And we've done this before too, where the actress, and she was a big name actress, and she was busy working in New York. We basically had our cut up on the Avid, and she was in an ADR facility on the phone recording, and we would hit play on the Avid, and we would hear it playing back in New York, not linked in any way other than the telephone. But with timing wise, you could just, editors can hit play just at the right spot, and you listen to it and go, looks pretty good, done. Now what they do now for the proper way, the studio way, is they actually use an ISDN line. Now that's a super old-fashioned geek way before the internet to have a high-resolution audio connection between the studio in one studio and the facility in the other. But they are still using ISDN. That's the expensive super geek way. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to record ADR creatively, but the best way is when they're still in character, when there's a brief timeout, go to the corner and shoot those additional lines. Actually, all the dialogue. I mean, if there's a chance to reshoot the dialogue because there might have been some noise or some issues, go ahead and shoot it wild. And that's something that an editor is really going to appreciate, but you will appreciate as a producer when you realize, I don't have to bring those people back. And usually in their contract there is a day or two set aside for ADR, but guess what? You may have already shot it, but then you go, God, I need some additional lines here. What are we going to do? They're in New York. They're in Santa Fe. How do we deal with this? So you always have to kind of be thinking ahead a little bit, and it will serve you well in the meantime. Which, by the way, and while he's doing that, I just want to remind you two things. Two of the assets that you have here now. One is your PR marketing expert, and two is Derek Horn, okay, which you will be talking to even 2 years from now when your film is in that festival circuit. So, take advantage of those things, but try and get some of those for your thesis if you have not already. I know some of you already gone before the cameras. The stereo mono DME splits, maybe not so important. But again, we're talking about in the real world. Do you guys know who our biggest audience or our biggest customers are? Well, what it used to be. I'm sure China's coming up, but yeah. Anybody take a guess? Japanese and
Germans.
In fact, they trade places from time to time. I would say Germany used to be bigger than Japan, but when Japan really had its rise back in the early 90s and late 80s, they were our number one customer.
Boardwalk Empire is actually translated in Russian for Russia, and they have some stuff on YouTube for it. But it's one guy doing all the voices, and they don't even take out the English dialogue. In fact, the one guy does the voices for the women, too. So that's what you're talking about sometimes. You're talking about some of these small post houses that they farm out to these third world countries, and the quality goes down. If the quality goes down, the income goes down. There's actually a great book by Michael Eisner. What was it called? Not Working Together, but I think it was In Progress. $1 to the first person on Amazon who can find that Michael Eisner book. But basically, he talks about how he was headed. Huh? You, sir, get $1.
Ding, 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 ding.
Well, there's like 5 different books. You've got Camp and then Work Together.
There you go.
I really should get $1.
Yes.
That's classic.
So, bottom line is, though, when he was head of Disney and he was dealing with Disney TV, he was over there for the opening of Euro Disney, and he was speaking with some French teacher because he was taking French classes. He was over there for half the year at a time because Euro Disney was this big thing, and she was a terrible French teacher. And then he also discovered that she was doing some of the language dubbing for Golden Girls, which was a Disney TV production. However, he discovered that the language dubbing for Golden Girls was equally as terrible as her French teaching. And actually, there's a line in there. Do any of you remember Golden Girls?
Yes.
Okay, so the old grandmother, well, they were all old grandmothers, but the oldest mother said, had this cute little line, "I have to pee." And, it would always come up at these very funny, awkward moments, so it would get a great laugh. But then when it was translated into French, it turned out into, "I have to piss," which is, much more vulgar and disgusting and takes away all the humor. So Disney wound up creating its own post house in Europe that would take care of all the foreign language dubs for their content. Now, it comes back to you guys as independent producers. You have to make a decision. Do you want to spend the time and the money so that the director has the correct control over the language and over the content? Will it affect your end of the term profit margins?
I do want to say one other thing too. On your smaller budgeted movie, you're not going to be thinking necessarily about foreign, even though as Tucci has informed us, sometimes foreign is more than half of your revenue stream. But on your smaller film, you're going to go, well, I can't budget for all this stuff realistically because I'm only making this movie for $75,000. So how do I accommodate for this? And I think what you have to do is look at the deliverables from the point of view as what's the minimum I need to get a sale or to get it into the festivals, and take all the rest of it and be aware of what the deliverables might be. You can look at a Netflix deliverable sheet, which I have, and I posted on Blackboard. You can look at what the deliverables are for a standard contract, which we will go over in this class, by the way. So don't worry about it. But you say, well, I'm going to call that a distribution expense, okay? Which means at some point it's going to get, somebody has to account for it, right? But you ain't going to put it in your physical production budget because you only got so much money to do all that stuff, which means you want to get it on the screen and get it onto a tape or to a master so that you can take it out to market.
Can I ask a side question?
Yeah.
What should we as producers keep with us in terms of those things? And like, do I want
Everything.
a
No.
hard drive with the raw footage? Do I want just
For your thesis?
Yeah.
For your thesis, it wouldn't hurt to have a short-term backup of your scans that are in Luster,
Okay.
or at least your rendered scans. And that's about 600 gigs of data. However, once you've mastered, it's probably not going to be necessary to go back. The reason we back up the rendered scans is that we have a deadline where we have to blow them off the server. We can't carry all these projects at once. We have, you have about 2 weeks, or actually 3 weeks from the time you receive your scans, getting ready to color grade and master, where you'll get these threatening notices. And don't worry about them. It's still negotiable at that point. But the idea is, if you think you need to go back up your render folder. Once you get to your master D5, that is essentially your master. You might want to clone it, but do people go back? Not necessarily at that point. You could probably then blow away your renders if you choose to.
So, basically a D5 is what you're saying.
Yes. Now, you should maybe back up your Pro Tools sessions or have your sound person at least, and that's something that can fit on a DVD-R. It's not that huge file, so that you can go back. And really, that's essentially what you're going to need in case you did get a foreign sale on your thesis, which is not out of the realm of impossibility. I mean, the grad thesis film I did sold to Canal Plus and aired on French television. Now, what they did at that point is they probably just subtitled it. But if you did have to go back, usually it's music. Usually there's a problem with music that you need to go back and strip out or replace. So that's another backup. Let's see what else. I'm trying to think. Ask me again sometime because I can't. I mean,
Okay.
off the top of my head,
I'll put it on my list.
I'm not thinking of thesis so much as just in the outside world.
Does the producer keep anything in the outside world in terms of this stuff?
Yeah.
Production binder. You
Yeah.
definitely want to hold on to copies of that.
Yeah, and much of this stuff's going to be electronic, and it's not going to be a big deal to store your stills, your scripts, your EPKs, any of the publicity materials. Here I'm on page 6, combines continuity and spotting. So there's your written copy of the final dialogue, the actual final spoken word, and I call it a legal script, but Tucci's calling it the written dialogue. Meaning that's a great thing to be able.
And that's not the official term I'm using either.
Yeah.
That's just layman's term.
I call it the legal script because it goes from a draft screenplay to a shooting script to a legal script, and a legal script is literally written by a legal secretary at the studio, documenting every line of dialogue in the movie, and then that goes into a file somewhere.
And on a side note, you're asking what elements to keep on you. I have had so many issues on professional productions where the production binders are lost. The production binders are completely mishandled or disorganized after I've turned them in. So keeping a copy of the production binder, whether it's scanned PDFs or just a Xerox binder, that's one thing you really want to hold on to.
You won't have to keep an extra copy. Well, for thesis, you're going to have to turn in a copy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, so do we
Of
have
your
to
binder,
do
yes.
we have to do we ever get those back?
no.
Okay, so, okay.
I know it's a very. I know this is the most. This
Yes.
is the most heinous
Yeah.
part
No.
of being a
So
producer
regarded.
in school is that I keep all my binders, right? But they want you to submit a binder and scan everything and throw it up on the server.
Yeah.
So basically, there's going to be 3 copies. Sorry to break it to you.
Wait,
It's-
okay, the copy you give them, like the paper. The
Your
copy
original
you scan.
binder plus a copy of the binder plus a scanned version going up to the cloud. Oh joy!
I mean, I post those things on Blackboard for every production, but like,
Do it as you go. I mean, hopefully
does
you
anyone
started.
even look at those?
I know. So don't get me started.
Everything.
I just I don't like the electronic version because I don't know where it is. I don't care. I like a hard copy.
Do they have like,
And plus, it's a nice souvenir when you get older.
is.
do they have
So.
requirements on how it has to be ordered?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes
Yes,
and no.
yes.
Yes, you get some dividers and
Because that's all I was doing, is throwing it in the
It-
different dividers.
yeah.
If
I
you're
can't-
gonna,
I can't answer that one, but I mean, usually it's going to be your shooting script, your continuity notes, your.
I will say this: if you're a producer, you better learn to love Kinko's and Staples and all these places. On your question, what should I keep? If you doubt the competence of any of your department heads, anything they make, you keep.
Good point. Yeah, no, because people lose
and
stuff.
I'm a control freak.
Yeah.
A producer who's a control freak? What a shocker!
I would say get a banker box,
Mhm.
label it for your production, load it up, and then put a destroy by date.
Yeah.
What else?
One other side note: I am astounded at the facilities you guys have got here. Well, we were talking earlier about how there's a ton of film students who go out based on the recommendations of their department heads and get extra equipment from up in LA because it's has some prestige or what have you. But there's a very, very small amount of equipment you really need from those places, like camera filters, and that's about it as far as I know. Like maybe a slider, but you have all of these resources here as far as the smoke and the gold room and all of these. Use it to its fullest potential.
At some point, if you have a special project, whether it's 3D, or you need stuff color graded, or you need it mastered, you will be able to come back here and do it if you ask the right way, if the timing's good so that it's not like in the heat of production. But we've hit the wall here in that we have all this technology, and yet we don't necessarily have all the operators to use it and teach it. For example, a color grade person at eFilm, gets paid a great deal of money. They're not going to come down here and teach because we can't pay them enough. They will come down from time to time and do a session or two. It's the same with those smoke and flame artists. They're highly sought out people, and they get paid the big bucks. But so anyway, these resources will be here when you move on, and I do hope that you move on. But we do have alums that come back and use them, and in some cases pay to get Tashi or somebody to get it through the system because they're experts at what they do. And, they've chosen not to go to Hollywood. They've chosen to hang around here and help us out. So.
And that's all, folks. Many thanks to Scott, Arundale, and Chapman University for having me. Check them out at www.chapman.edu/Dodge. You can also find out more about Michael Eisner's book Work in Progress and other topics we discussed by visiting the links for this episode on our website. Our banner image this week is provided courtesy of Chapman University. Our music this week is Walk That Dog by U.S. Army Blues, courtesy of freemusicarchive.org. Please check out their website at freemusicarchive.org. We're starting to grow our Producers Lounge community, so if you'd like to submit either jazz music or banner photos for an episode, post a link on our Facebook page. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/theproducerslounge. Remember, you show your support for films by not downloading them, you show your support on Hulu by clicking on the commercials, and you show your support for podcasts by liking and commenting. And you can always check out our website, www.theproducersloungepodcast.com. Thank you again. I'm your host, Richard Tucci. Join us next week for more cocktails and questions. And until then, keep producing dreams.